Hello, hello, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. James here, as ever, for today's AAT video, where we're going to walk and talk you through some top tips how to pass your examinations. And that's for the Association of Accounts Technicians, which I unfortunately missed out on a previous video. But nevertheless, I know just the lady who's going to walk and talk us through her experiences of passing her AAT exams. So, Rebecca, feel free to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so as James says, I'm Rebecca, and you might know me from Miss Finance tutorials. And I myself have been through the AAT studies, so I did level 2, level 3, and level 4. And on the channel, I try and talk about AAT as much as is physically possible to help you with your studies. So that's what we're going to try and do today.
Exactly. We both know the pain of working full time, studying on top of it. When I was working in practice, I used to help out the AAT students when they were doing their level 3 and 4 exams, whilst just being completely new in working in an accounting practice. So, Rebecca, if I had to take you back to the start, where are we going to begin? How to pass them? What would be the setup? Free resources? What are we thinking?
Yeah, so me and James have talked about this before today, but back in our day, in the medieval ages, when we started out, there was no additional free resources available to AAT students at all. And YouTube back then was nothing but music
Mm,
videos. Sound really old. But there just wasn't those additional resources available to you, and all you had were your study text, and it was just the block study text. They
mm.
weren't online. There was none of that. Whereas these days, you've obviously got me and James that you can rely on to provide content to you on YouTube. Um, there is free quizzes that you can find online that you've got access to, free resources. You can now listen to podcasts, etc., as you're walking.
The array of it. But
It's
I
just
mean,
crazy.
we also have. I never had anyone that I could listen to, but I appreciate there'll be people listening to this who might be 16, 17, 18, just starting out, or maybe you've transitioned from another career that maybe you're in your 40s, 50s, and you're giving accounting a try. Honestly, it doesn't matter. It's a great qualification to have. So the first thing I would say is actually working out in your life when you have available time to actually
Mm,
study around your commitments. So we're going to have some people who are listening to this who are self-studying, who maybe might not be working at the time, or we've got people who are working full-time who have got job commitments, or we've got people who've got kids. You've got to work out in your calendar, and I still do this to this day, is go through every day for the week and
yeah.
work out when am I actually available to put in an hour or two here and there.
Yeah, and from my point of view, so there's different ways that you can go about this. So if you are somebody, we'll start with somebody who's working in practice and they're going to college at the same time, so
Mhm.
you're studying and working at the same time. So what I used to find was what worked for me, and I had to learn because I don't think at school they teach you how to study,
Mm.
unless you're blessed and you're somebody who just takes on information first
Yeah.
time, which I don't. I never learned anything in the classroom and had to go back home to learn to learn.
Exactly.
Um, but what you need to find is, firstly, what works for you. And I don't mean this lightly at all. So you might be in class and individuals are, up first thing in the morning and they're studying, etc., and they can really, take on that information. But that not might not work for you, and that's okay. So what you really need to start practicing is try studying in the morning, try studying at lunchtime, and then
Mm.
try studying in the evening. And don't do this for a long time. I'd say 30 minutes maximum,
Yeah.
and see at which point in the day are you retaining the most information. And do this, for 3 or 4 days before
Mhm.
you work out which one of those times is best for you. But I highly recommend that you do that because it doesn't there isn't, one size fits all in terms of study time
Mm.
at all. And once you find out what works for you, you will be quite surprised at how much information you can retain. So
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
it's really important not to copy what everybody else is doing. Um, my second tip, and this actually goes to anybody who's studying anything really,
Mhm.
is when you're at school, you have time to copy out your notes and make them pretty and make them nice, etc. When you're studying accounting and bookkeeping, I wouldn't recommend that you do that. What I'd say is spend time instead looking at the content, going through the workbooks, and going through the mock exams, if there are any mock exams at that particular level. So it's more practice makes perfect, as opposed to scribbling out fancy looking notes in different colours. And I'm speaking from experience here,
Yeah.
because I am the stationery queen and I love colouring things in and making things pretty. But I learnt the hard way in that is not how you retain information, it's through practice.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Just
highly recommend push your boundaries.
trial and
And
error, just keep practicing, keep doing more questions. And look, if your trial balance doesn't balance, if your balance sheet doesn't balance, honestly, if you're doing AAT, you're new into the accounting profession, but you've probably got limited experience on it. I
yeah,
wouldn't expect if you were in my class for you to be getting everything right. Think about the workings, the process, pro formas, own figure rules, all these sort of things will come into it. As to if anything's coming up in today's recording that you're not sure on, leave myself and Rebecca a comment below, as we can direct you to some free resources on there
yeah.
and to help you out for it as well. I mean, other things that spring to mind, Rebecca, if you had to go back and do your exams again, what's coming to the forefront?
I'd say one major thing is that, in terms of confidence, and again, not getting things right first time, it doesn't matter. It just
Mm,
doesn't matter. You just got to make sure that you learn from it and you practice, practice, practice. So, I have students come to me now on the channel who say, I've been doing this for 2 years and I still don't get debits and credits.
mhm.
And I think I know, and then the next week I don't know because something else comes up. And it could be the way that a question's worded differently,
Yeah.
or they're just not used to that sort of setting or a scenario, etc. And that's okay. You literally have to go back to basics and go, right, okay, debit this, credit that, and why do we debit this and credit that? And
Exactly.
I think it's more important to know the whys. So when you are studying, don't just, and this will account for the rest of your career in bookkeeping and accounting. Don't just do something because it's there to be done. Um, Always understand the why you're doing something. So the objective, why are we even doing this process? Why does it matter at all? And if you learn that, that will help you to remember the debits,
Mm,
credits, the
yeah.
simple stuff, the all the complicated stuff that comes later.
Mm.
And you'll go very far if you take that approach,
Oh,
as opposed
definitely.
to I'm just learning this to pass this exam. That's
For,
not.
for the sake
Please
of
don't
it.
do that.
Yeah, exactly. Or the other tips I used to get when I was doing mine for my tutors was always imagine these are the records that you're doing for an actual business that you're working at or you
Mm,
want to go and work at, because we might have some people who are self-studying that aren't working at a place at the
yeah,
moment. Or secondly, it'd be a case of actually saying, what if it was actually my own business on there, or my own personal finances? That what assets do I have? When they reduce in value, what depreciation methods am I going to use? And it just comes to that practice and building it up. The other thing what helped me was setting targets as well. So you
yeah.
know when the exam date is, and you think, right, I want to have all the study text done 3 weeks beforehand, something like that. And then it's so underrated, but just practice questions to time in the exam conditions. I know you don't want to do it. I know you don't want to do it. And there are days when you can't be bothered to do it. But trust me, it's one of the best effective ways as a learning curve that you just get used to what it would be like in the exam situation.
And not just that, doing that, because seriously, if I could go back in time and send you a screenshot of what my desk looked like when I was studying, I had clocks. I had so many different clocks going off at certain times on my desk. It was
Mm,
driving my family mad, because it'd be like, right, that clock stopped, right, I've got to end that question, got to move on
yeah,
to the next, etc. And it was hard, really hard work, doing that, because it was out of my comfort zone. I didn't
yeah,
like it. It's not the way that I've learned in the past. But actually, what it made me do was focus on the areas that I was not very good at.
weakest on,
Or
yeah.
yeah, because it's really easy to get into the mindset when you're studying to go, I really enjoy doing, prepayments and accruals, so I'm gonna
Mm.
just focus all my time on that. You can't do that. So it forces you to go, right, I'm not so sure about depreciation. I don't really know what this is. How do we deal with it? Why do we deal with it that way?
Mm.
And then focusing on those questions. So it can be a very good way of highlighting areas of improvement.
Exactly. Yeah. And also because some people will be working or maybe studying from home, just try and find somewhere that when you sit down in that place, that is your studying place as well. So after work, I used to go down to a public library and sit in these desks, I kid you not. And it was a case of I looked around and go, well, the reason why I'm here is because I've got to do this past paper question on
Yeah.
balance sheet that I just don't want to do, but I need to do it because it's going to come up on my exam. But I knew because I was there, that was it. And then you start to get into it of like, right, phone goes on airplane mode, like you said, set up your clock, all these sort of things. So finding that right environment, and maybe you could fit in a study session at work on your lunch break, or I've known students who get into work an hour early and then study in a room there that they'll go, oh, I'm here, so I'm going to study now.
Yeah, or if you are working in a practice, for example, talk to your employer. And this is something we did. We asked if there was a certain room that could be used at lunchtimes for just students. And it was a quiet room that we could all go to. We could eat our lunch in there and we could just study and get our heads down together. And they approved that. So it's worth asking the question to see if you can. But if you are somebody who's not in that position and you're self-studying, there's actually studies that have been shown to prove that if you have, as James says, an area, a desk that you go to study, your brain associates, right, study time, I need to get my head down. And I'm sure we've both been in the position where you sit down and you go, I don't want to do this right now. And you know, you can't focus, etc. And that's because you've not set up the space, you've not cleared your desk, you've not made it an environment for study. And it's really important that you do that.
Yeah, exactly. Just reduce the friction of basically, I used to have all the books laid out, all the pens ready to go, or if you're doing a computer-based question, whatever it is, basically all I'm down to, I've just got to push the button to say go on there for me on there. But are there any other areas, Rebecca, that are coming to your mind that you go, oh, an AAT student really needs to know that if they've got an exam coming up and how to pass it?
Yeah, I would just say just that really you need to manage your time. Manage your time. And also do not try and fit in study the night before or these long periods of study. It doesn't work. And again, there's many studies to prove that it doesn't work. So that whole bite-size, you know, information, sit down for 30 minutes at a time and then go off for 15 minutes, go for a walk, go do something completely different. Let your mind, you know, let that information sink in, and it really does work. So just bear in mind, manage your time so that you have availability to do these 30-minute slots of study as opposed to write the exams tomorrow to get it all down. Please don't do that. I don't recommend that at all.
Yeah, even it's coming back into my mind now, some of my old AAT students I used to work with, and you know, some people passed, some people failed, and one of them came back and just said, James, I failed it. I think I didn't even answer all the questions on it because I ran out of time. So even just doing the 100 marks in the examination it's just bread and butter that you think, oh, you sit the exam, you do all the questions. But sometimes if it's your first exam that you might not have done in a while, makes a massive difference on there. And the other final thing would be to reach out to other individuals who have already done their AAT. Maybe they work with you, or you can find them on LinkedIn and just ask them as well, because they'll have made the mistakes, which obviously you don't want to make as well.
Yeah, and we'll you know, there's plenty of Facebook groups out there that you can join, where individuals are purely studying AAT that you can be a part of and ask, as James says, those questions. And you know, everybody's very helpful in those communities. So definitely worth jumping on there if you're not already part of a community.
Yeah, exactly. Because you got who you've got in your surroundings, in your sphere. It's a case of, you know, your mum or your partner or whoever it may be might not be an accountant, might not have done an exam in how many years. So it's a case of put yourself around people, like listening to today's recording on there. You can leave myself and Rebecca a comment below. We'll get in touch with you, and hopefully it could be the difference in today. As we both know, Rebecca, we've unfortunately both failed exams, so it's okay. We're happy to admit it on camera.
Happy.
So if you
more than happy.
yes. So you're in that bracket, don't worry about it. And it could just be those little extra differences to get those few marks just to get you over the line. And you'll come back to this video and you'll say, James, Rebecca, I watched your video and I passed by the skin of my teeth. Good stuff. If I hadn't watched your video, could have been a different outcome. We'll be fine on it as well. But as I said, guys, I've linked all of Rebecca's details below. So make sure you subscribe to her channel along with mine so you don't miss out on any future videos. Leave us a comment as well. And we'll be sure to see you in future videos. And fingers crossed, you'll catch up with us at a CPD event in the future, and you'll be
Yeah.
on the road to getting qualified and going on to whichever other professional body you may go to do.
Absolutely.
Super stuff. Well, thank you very much, Rebecca, for saying. Enjoy your exam, guys, and I hope the tips have helped. So we'll see you soon. Cheers.